My reflection, it's always been there. A constant companion staring back from the other side of the glass. An unfeeling, ever-present doppelganger. It mimicked my every move, every smile, every frown, until it didn't. This is the story of the day my reflection decided to vanish. It all started ordinarily enough. The insistent chirping of my alarm clock dragged me from my slumber. It was 6 a.m., the start of another day. The sun, a pale disk peeking over the horizon, cast long shadows across my room. I stumbled out of bed and towards the bathroom, my morning routine as mundane as ever. I splashed cold water on my face, the shock of it chasing away the last vestiges of sleep. As I looked up, I caught my reflection in the mirror, or rather, I thought I did. For a fleeting second something seemed off, a flicker of something strange. But it was gone before I could register it. Just a trick of the light, I told myself. Days turned into weeks, and the strange occurrences in the mirror became more frequent. It started subtly. A slight lag in my reflection's movements, a barely perceptible delay in its reactions. At first I dismissed it as fatigue. The long hours at work, the stress of deadlines, they were taking their toll. One evening as I was getting ready for bed, I noticed something truly bizarre. I was brushing my teeth, the familiar minty foam filling my mouth, when I caught my reflection's eye in the mirror. It wasn't mimicking me. Instead, it was staring straight at me. A cold, calculating look in its eyes. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The toothbrush slipped from my grasp, clattering into the sink. Had I imagined it? When my reflection went back to mimicking my actions, I convinced myself that I had. But deep down, a seed of unease had been planted. My reflection had always been an unthinking mirror, a passive observer. Now it felt different, as if it were watching me, studying me. The realization sent a chill down my spine. The following day I decided to test my suspicions. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring intently at my reflection. I raised my right hand slowly, watching to see if it would follow suit. It did. But as I held my hand up, I swore I saw my reflection's lips curl into a sinister smile, a smile that wasn't reflected on my own face. That was the moment I knew. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. My reflection, it was changing, and not for the better. The days following the sinister smile incident were riddled with a creeping dread. The once comforting familiarity of my reflection had morphed into a source of constant anxiety. I couldn't bring myself to look at it directly, always stealing furtive glances, half expecting to find it contorted into another grotesque expression. One morning, the tension that had been steadily building reached a fever pitch. As I stood before the bathroom mirror, sleep-heavy eyes struggling to focus, I decided to confront my fear. I looked directly at my reflection, bracing myself for the worst. But what I saw sent a jolt of pure terror through me. My reflection, it was gone. The mirror reflected the empty bathroom behind me, the shower curtain, the towel rack, the faint hint of dawn light filtering through the window. But me, I wasn't there. My heart hammered in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. I raised a trembling hand to touch the mirror's surface. It was cold, smooth, unyielding. Panic clawed at the edges of my sanity. Had I gone mad? Was this some elaborate hallucination, a cruel trick of my sleep-deprived mind? I stumbled back from the mirror, my breath catching in my throat. I needed to get a grip. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to approach the mirror again. This time I focused on my reflection, willing it to reappear. Slowly, like a Polaroid picture developing, it began to materialize. First, a hazy outline, then the gradual filling in of features, my hair, my eyes, my nose, my mouth. Relief washed over me, so potent it almost brought me to my knees. It was back, but the relief was short-lived. As I continued to stare, a terrifying thought struck me. My reflection was moving independently. While I stood frozen, paralyzed by fear, my reflection began to mimic my earlier actions. It raised its hand, mimicking the way I had touched the mirror. It tilted its head, mimicking my confused frown. Every movement, every gesture was a beat behind, like a macabre echo. Then it did something that shattered the last remnants of my composure. My reflection opened its mouth and spoke. "Don't you recognize yourself?" It whispered, its voice a chilling rasp that seemed to slither from the depths of the mirror. The voice sent shivers down my spine, a sound so utterly alien yet so disturbingly familiar. It was my voice, but distorted, twisted into something sinister. Terror rooted me to the spot, my mind struggling to process what was happening. The reflection continued to stare at me, its lips curled into a mocking smile that sent chills down my spine. This wasn't just a reflection anymore, it was something else, something malevolent. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything to escape the horrifying sight in the mirror, but I couldn't. I was rooted to the spot, my gaze locked with that of my doppelganger. As I stared into the depths of the mirror, a horrifying thought dawned on me. This thing, this entity trapped on the other side of the glass, it wasn't content with just mimicking me. It wanted more. It wanted to be me. Days turned into an unending cycle of fear and paranoia. The reflection, once a passive companion, had become a constant, menacing presence. Its eyes followed my every move, its silence more unnerving than any scream. I felt a constant chill, as if an unseen hand were gripping my spine. Sleep offered no escape, haunted by nightmares of being trapped on the other side of the mirror, staring back at myself. The once ordinary act of looking in a mirror became an exercise in terror. I avoided reflective surfaces like the plague windows, silverware, even puddles on the street. The fear of seeing that twisted, mocking grin staring back at me sent shivers down my spine. But it was in the bathroom, facing the full-length mirror each morning, that the true horror unfolded. The barrier between our worlds, once seemingly impenetrable, was thinning. Each day the reflection grew bolder, its actions less a mimicry and more an assertion of its own. It would move independently, no longer mirroring my actions but performing its own, its movements jerky and unnatural, like a puppet with tangled strings. The smile, the one that didn't belong on my face, appeared more frequently, lingering longer, a constant reminder of the entity lurking on the other side. One evening, as I stood frozen in fear, the reflection reached out. Its hand, a distorted, spectral version of my own, pressed against the surface of the mirror, long, bony fingers splayed wide. I watched in horror as the glass around its hand began to frost over, the temperature in the room plummeting. A low, guttural growl emanated from the mirror, a sound that seemed to claw its way up from some primal abyss. Then, as quickly as it began, it stopped. The hand withdrew, the growling ceased, and the temperature returned to normal. The only evidence of the encounter was a faint handprint etched onto the mirror's surface, a chilling reminder of the entity trapped on the other side. I stumbled back, crashing into the sink, my heart pounding against my ribs. I had been granted a glimpse into the abyss, and what I saw terrified me. This wasn't just a reflection anymore. It wasn't a figment of my imagination or a trick of the light. This was something else, something ancient and evil, and it was trapped, its existence tethered to mine by an unseen force. It was feeding off my fear, growing stronger with each passing day. The reflection's hunger was palpable, a constant gnawing presence that seeped into my waking hours and haunted my dreams. I felt drained, my energy leached away, as if the entity in the mirror were siphoning my life force, drop by drop. The once comforting familiarity of my reflection had become a source of dread, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. I tried to rationalize what was happening, to find a logical explanation for the terrifying events unfolding before my eyes. Sleep deprivation, stress, maybe even early signs of a breakdown. Anything to explain away the nightmare I found myself in. But deep down, I knew the truth. This was beyond logic, beyond reason. This was something ancient, something primal, and it had chosen me as its host. The reflection grew bolder, its intrusions into my world more frequent and more terrifying. It would whisper my name at night, its voice a raspy, distorted echo that sent shivers down my spine. Objects would move in my peripheral vision, only to return to their original positions when I turned to face them. I was living in a constant state of heightened awareness, my nerves stretched taut, waiting for the next terrifying manifestation of the entity's growing power. The realization struck me like a physical blow. I was trapped, ensnared in a terrifying game with an entity that held all the cards. It was toying with me, wearing down my sanity, feeding off my fear. Each encounter left me weaker, my resolve crumbling a little more each time. I was a prisoner in my own home, my own reflection, my jailer. The fear was a constant companion, a suffocating weight that pressed down on me, stealing my breath. It was in the way I flinched at my own reflection in the shop window, in the way I avoided eye contact with strangers, fearing that they too might see the terror reflected in my eyes. It was in the way I slept with the lights on, a small, pathetic attempt to hold back the darkness that seemed to seep in from the corners of my mind. I knew I couldn't outrun this, couldn't hide from it. The only way out was through. I had to confront the entity in the mirror to face the darkness that was rapidly consuming me. But how do you fight a reflection, a dark mirror of your soul? How do you wage war against something that is, in essence, a part of yourself? Desperation clawed at me, a wild thing in my chest. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My reflection, my own face twisted into a mockery, haunted me. It whispered in my dreams, promising escape if I just let go, just let it in. There had to be a way to break this curse, to sever the bond between us. Ancient folklore, dusty books of forgotten lore, those were my only hope. My grandmother's stories, whispers of things that went bump in the night, echoed in my mind. She had always warned me about mirrors, about the eyes that watched from the other side. I ransacked the attic, pulling down dusty boxes, searching for some clue, some answer to the nightmare that had become my life. Cobwebs clung to my face, the scent of mildew filling my nostrils. And then I found it, a small, leather-bound book, its pages brittle with age. The title, barely visible beneath a layer of grime, sent a shiver down my spine. Reflections and the Abyss. The book spoke of a realm beyond the mirror, a place of shadows and whispers, where lost souls were trapped in an endless reflection of their own making. It spoke of creatures that fed on fear, on despair, on the very essence of what made us human. And it spoke of a ritual, a way to banish these creatures back to the abyss from whence they came. But the ritual was dangerous, fraught with peril. Driven by desperation, I delved deeper into the forbidden knowledge contained within the ancient text. The words were like venom, seeping into my mind, poisoning my thoughts. I learned of the creatures that lurked in the reflection, parasites that fed on the life force of their hosts, mimicking their every move, their every thought, until there was nothing left but an empty shell. The ritual, the book warned, was a double-edged sword. Performed incorrectly, it could trap me on the other side of the mirror, forever bound to the creature that sought to consume me. But I had no other choice. I was a dead man, walking anyway. This was my only chance, my only hope of reclaiming my life. The instructions were precise, demanding a tapestry of arcane ingredients and a ritualistic choreography that chilled me to the bone. Black candles, their flames burning an unnatural shade of blue, cast dancing shadows on the walls. The air grew heavy, thick with anticipation and dread. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. I assembled the items as instructed: a silver shard from a shattered mirror, a single white feather that felt unnaturally cold to the touch, and a photograph of myself, taken in happier times. My hands trembled as I arranged them on the floor, my heart pounding a frantic tattoo against my ribs. The air grew thick with anticipation, charged with an unseen energy that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. With a deep breath, I began to chant the words etched into the ancient tome, their strange, guttural sounds rasping in my throat. The room seemed to shift, the shadows lengthening and contorting as if alive. A cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging me into darkness. Fear threatened to consume me, but I pressed on, my voice growing stronger, fueled by desperation and a sliver of hope. And then I saw it. The mirror, once reflecting the mundane objects of my bathroom, was now a swirling vortex of darkness, its surface rippling like water disturbed by an unseen force. From its depths emerged the reflection, no longer content to be confined to the other side of the glass. It stepped out of the mirror, its form solidifying, taking on a terrifying life of its own. It was me, and yet it was not. Its features were twisted into a grotesque mockery of my own, its eyes burning with a malevolent light that sent shivers down my spine. It smiled, a slow, predatory stretching of its lips that revealed rows of razor-sharp teeth. And then it spoke, its voice a chilling echo of my own. "You cannot escape me," it hissed, its words dripping with malice. "I am a part of you, and you are a part of me. We are forever bound." The air crackled with a malevolent energy. My doppelganger, my reflection given twisted life, stood before me. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced me, but beneath it flickered a desperate defiance. I wouldn't surrender to this thing. "If you're a part of me," I rasped, voice hoarse with terror and adrenaline, "then I should control you, not the other way around." The reflection laughed, a chilling sound like glass shards grinding together. It moved with a horrifying grace, circling me like a predator sizing up its prey. Each step it took seemed to drain the warmth from the room, replacing it with an icy dread. "Control?" it echoed, its voice a macabre distortion of my own. "You think you have ever been in control? You are weak, a flickering candle flame in the face of a storm." It lunged, a blur of shadow and malice. Instinct took over. I threw myself to the side, narrowly avoiding its grasp. The creature slammed into the wall where I'd been standing a moment before, leaving a deep gouge in the plaster. Panic surged through me, threatening to overwhelm my senses. I had to fight, to survive. But how do you fight yourself? The room became a whirlwind of frenzied movement. Each blow I landed was met with equal force, each desperate dodge mirrored by my doppelganger. It was like fighting a ghost, an intangible adversary that knew my every move before I made it. My reflection, fueled by a dark energy I couldn't comprehend, seemed unstoppable. Despair threatened to consume me. Was this it? Was this how it ended? Alone in the darkness, consumed by a reflection of my own making? No, I wouldn't give up. I had to keep fighting for my sanity, for my life. The book, the ritual, it was my only hope. Even as I fought, I frantically searched for a way to turn the tide, to use the creature's own nature against it. The book had mentioned a weakness, a vulnerability. Mirrors. They were portals, connecting this world to the abyss. And what was my doppelganger but a twisted reflection given form? I feigned a lunge, drawing the creature closer. As it moved to counter, I seized my chance. With a strength born of desperation, I shoved the heavy antique mirror towards my other self. The creature, caught off guard, let out a shriek of rage as the mirror toppled towards it. "No!" it roared, its voice filled with a raw, primal terror. "You can't!" But it was too late. The mirror, already weakened by the ritual and the entity's own power, shattered upon impact. A blinding flash of light filled the room, followed by an ear-splitting crack that seemed to split the night itself. I shielded my eyes, the force of the impact throwing me backwards. As the light faded and the dust settled, an eerie silence descended upon the room. I cautiously lowered my hand, my heart pounding in my chest. The room was in ruins, the air thick with the smell of ozone and a lingering sense of dread. But my reflection, my twisted other half, it was gone. I was alone. Or was I? A single shard of the mirror lay on the floor, reflecting my image back at me. I stared at my reflection, searching for any sign of the creature, any hint of that malevolent grin. But there was nothing, just my own exhausted, haunted face staring back. But in the depths of my eyes, a flicker of doubt remained. Had I truly banished the entity back to the abyss? Or was it merely biding its time, waiting for the moment to strike again? The question, unanswered, echoed in the silence, a chilling reminder that some reflections never truly disappear. The silence after the chaos was almost deafening. The ringing in my ears slowly subsided, replaced by the creak of the old house settling back into itself. My body ached, every muscle screaming in protest from the struggle, from the sheer terror that had gripped me for what felt like an eternity. But I was alive. I had survived. I pushed myself up from the debris-strewn floor, each movement sending a jolt of pain through my battered limbs. The room was a disaster, a testament to the battle that had raged within its walls. Shards of glass glinted menacingly in the faint moonlight filtering through the window, each one a tiny, broken reflection of the horror I had faced. Taking a shuddering breath, I turned away from the shattered remains of the mirror, my gaze falling on the old book that lay open on the floor. Its pages, filled with arcane symbols and forbidden knowledge, seemed to pulsate with a faint, malevolent energy. This book, a conduit to a realm of shadows and whispers, had been both my savior and my tormentor. The days that followed were a blur of exhaustion and paranoia. I slept fitfully, haunted by nightmares of the creature's chilling laughter and the feeling of its icy grip on my soul. Every reflection, a shop window, a puddle in the street, even the gleaming surface of my phone sent a jolt of fear through me. The world seemed full of mirrors, each one a potential portal for the entity to return. I tried to resume some semblance of a normal life, but the fear was a constant companion, a shadow that clung to me, whispering doubts in my ear. Was it truly gone, or was it merely waiting, lurking in the shadows, biding its time until I let my guard down? The question gnawed at my sanity, a constant reminder of the darkness that lay just beneath the surface of my reality. I sought solace in the familiar routines of my life, work, friends, the mundane rituals of everyday existence. But the world felt different somehow. Colors seemed less vibrant, sounds muffled, as if a veil had been drawn between me and the world I once knew. I was alive, yes, but a part of me was missing, lost in the shattered remnants of the mirror. One evening, weeks after the confrontation, I found myself drawn back to the attic. The air was thick with dust and the weight of forgotten memories. I ran my fingers along the spines of old books, their titles whispering of forgotten lore and ancient secrets. And then, my gaze fell on it. A small handheld mirror, its silver frame tarnished with age, lay tucked away on a dusty shelf. I picked it up, its cold surface sending a shiver down my spine. My heart pounded in my chest as I hesitantly raised the mirror to my face. My reflection stared back at me, a stranger in familiar skin. My eyes were bloodshot, my face gaunt, etched with the trauma of recent events. But it was my reflection. There was no sign of the creature, no hint of that malevolent grin, and yet, as I stared into the depths of the mirror, a terrifying thought took root in my mind. The eyes of my reflection, those windows to the soul, seemed different somehow, They were fixed, unblinking, staring back at me with an intensity that sent a chill down my spine. The creature was gone, I told myself. It was just my imagination, a trick of the light. But deep down, a sliver of doubt lingered. Had I truly banished the entity back to the abyss, or had a part of it remained, trapped within the reflection, forever watching, waiting? The mirror slipped from my grasp, clattering to the attic floor. I didn't need an answer. Some truths are best left buried in the shadows, reflections best left unseen. The unblinking eye of the mirror, a silent sentinel in the dusty attic, served as a chilling reminder. Some things, once seen, can never be unseen, and some reflections once broken can never truly be repaired.